So one of the first things that you want to do if you're beginning to think about being sustainable on the property that you live, even if it's a small space, you can go around your neighborhood, you can look. Obviously, if you're going to look around your neighborhood, you're looking for wild spaces that haven't been sprayed. But if you live on a piece of property like our yard, one of the first things that you want to do is get a sense of what you have. Growing food and medicine doesn't just have to be in a plot that you tilled and you bought seeds. A lot of it can be food and medicine that's growing in the sidewalk cracks, in the weedy part of your yard, in the hedgerows. So obviously one of those first things, I'm going to take you through sort of a leaf, flower, fruit, root sort of year as we look over this here together. Leaves are really easy to find and are one of those first things that are easy to pick and know when to get. This is a dandelion leaf, Taraxacum officinale, and if you begin to look for plants that you're going to put in your body to balance it or to nourish it, one of the first things you're going to want to do is learn the Latin names. It seems like a real pain in the rear, but knowing your Latin names and then beginning to understand the plant enough to know what shape the leaf is and how the flower grows and what it looks like in different seasons helps you to identify it properly. There are plants out in wild spaces and even in your yard that can cause, if it's not toxic, it can cause you to be really uncomfortable. It can cause pain in your digestion. It can cause you to be sick. So it's always important to really know the plant that you're harvesting. And that's more than just I saw it on a YouTube video, or somebody from my youth group said that I really needed to go out and pick dandelion leaf. Spend some time getting to know what you're going to put in your body first. So dandelion leaf is something that we can pick all the way through the year. When we think about picking leaves, we're looking for a plant that is just beginning to think about opening up a flower, is usually when we want to get our leaves at peak. There are best times of the year for different plants. There are best times of the year for different parts of the plant. And then there's best times of the day to pick your plants that you get in your backyard. The best time of the day to get our leaves is going to be in the morning, in most cases after the dew has dried off, and also again in the evening before the dew has fallen. We don't want to get it in the middle of the day, because imagine how you feel when you're out under the hot sun in the middle of the day. You're exhausted and maybe it just feels like you're melting. Your plant is going to be the same way, and so you're not going to get the best phytochemicals. So in the morning after the dew has dried, and in the evening before the dew has dropped, and we're going to pick this at the best time of the year. We're looking for when the flower is just opening. Now dandelion is a special case, and we can really pick it anytime, no matter how old it is, no matter what time of the year it is. If we can find dandelion greens, pick them. This is something that we can eat fresh. I don't have to cook it. This is starting to get a little more mild again. We've had a couple frosts here on our property. In the middle of the summer, dandelion greens are going to be really bitter. And at that point, you want to pick and marinate them. You can cook them just like a spinach green and put Italian dressing on it and put it in the refrigerator, and it becomes a supplement. Dandelion greens can be a supplement for digestion. This is really good for livers, and so many people are overtaxed in their livers right now. Too much sludge from food and too much toxicity from the outside world interacting with us. Dandelion greens are really good for allowing the liver to let go of all of that. Dandelion greens are also very nourishing. They're bitter, so they're going to stimulate the digestion. They're good for the kidneys as well. And this is one of the most recognizable. This has a yellow flower that we recognize, but do be very careful that you're picking things that aren't sprayed. One of the other leaves I actually have here at my feet, if the cat will help me out. We've got outdoor cats that love to help anytime I do a class or a video. So he is helping. Plantain. This is Plantago lanceolata. And you can see it's got these straight veins. Plantain is really good in the lungs. It's great if you're out and you've got a splinter or a bug bite. You can chew it or you can wad it up and you put it on and it becomes a poultice, and it will draw out toxicity, infection, splinters. It can also be eaten. It's highly nutritious. We use it in the winter to support vitamin A, beta carotene support or content, and it is amazing for helping to move congestion out of the lungs, and it's known for supporting our urinary tract as well. A lot of things going on here, and you'll notice that as you begin to study the plants that are around you that are just the simple weeds, they all have a nutritional component to them. They're not just medicine. They're not something that you have to control or think about, well, how much can I eat? What's the dose on that? We're not worried about take 2 pills and 2 pills only. We are consuming it and enjoying it as part of our meal and as part of our day-to-day life, or as part of a tea that we're enjoying. So this is Plantago lanceolata. I didn't look before I sat down, but I'll bet I've got Plantago major around here. Usually it hides whenever Plantago major is here. And that's a round, more of a rounded leaf. We want to know our Latin names because the Latin name is the only name that identifies this specific plant. This plant is not, now it's wadded up. This plant is not this plant, because they have very unique Latin names. There's only one Plantago major on the planet. And so regardless of what language I'm talking in, if I'm talking to somebody in Germany about Plantago major, we're talking about this plant. When we talk about putting things in our body, we need to be very, very clear that what we're harvesting is what we think it is, and that we're studying and using for the benefit that we're looking for is absolutely that plant. There are some lookalikes in the plant world. This plant family, for instance, right here has some poisonous lookalikes. This is in the carrot family. This is, you may know it as Queen Anne's lace. It's also wild carrot, Daucus carota. There are benefits here. There are things that we might use this for, the seeds, the flower, the leaf, and the root. But it does have poisonous members of the family and lookalikes that we want to be careful not to think we're getting this and to get the poison. So this is why we really want to understand the plant that we're picking. So let's move on to flower. This is red clover, Trifolium praetens, and if you're near my age, you may remember in elementary school we would pull out the flowers and we would chew. It's very sweet. That's why we did it. We would chew on the little white spots of these flowers, and I remember sitting on the playground in elementary school during recess doing that. Who knew we were getting our medicine, probably horrifying the teachers. But when we are going after red clover, we're going after the blossom. We can use the leaf, that's fine. But when we pick red clover, we are primarily just picking the top few leaves and the blossom, and we dry this. Red clover is a blood thinner. It is a blood cleanser. It's called an alterative, so it's in the class. It's along with dandelion that favorably improves the condition of our blood. It works to support our liver. This is a really good one to help anybody who maybe can't use blood thinning medications or chooses not to, but needs that function of thinning out the blood and keeping the blood safe and preventing it from clotting. When we think about picking a flower, we really want it in its perfect state. So this one, obviously this one is not medicine or food. This one I also wouldn't pick because of the browning that's on there. That tells me that a bumblebee has pollinated this. Bumblebees love red clover. And if you've ever watched a bumblebee try to pollinate red clover, they're really clumsy and they're so huge. It's really funny to me that this is a flower that they're meant to pollinate because they seem to be overly large in design to match this. But indeed, this is something that you would plant to attract bumblebees. When they pollinate, they're so big and clumsy that they damage these florets, these little bits of the flower. And it's not that damage is going to be a problem. It's not that this is necessarily bad for your body or it won't work at all. It's just that I know that this isn't at peak now. I know that it's not at peak because I want to get this flower just as it's opening. And the bumblebee doesn't want the flower just as it's opening. The bumblebee wants it fully open and the nectaries are open for business and there's something there for them to come and get. It's a little bit further in peak than I wanted if I want absolutely tip-top best function. So that browning tells me that it's been open long enough that a bumblebee has come and pollinated and it's gone on from there for oxygenation and damage from the sun and maybe wind and rain has happened. And so this is one that I would overlook. Now, if you're in a commercial situation where you've got a field of red clover, you'll likely have this in the medicine. So big medicinal herb providers will often have this in amongst everything, and that's fine. It's not bad for you. It's not that it doesn't have anything good in it. It's just not at peak. If you're at home and you're going through your own yard or you're going through your own bed that you've planted on purpose, you can avoid the stuff that isn't perfect as much as you like. And you can pick this if you're good with it. Everybody's got a different threshold. But remember that when we're picking flowers, we are picking things that are just starting to open, just starting to realize their potential. Not when they're closed completely and not when they're completely done, but just about in the middle there is our best time. The next phase would be a fruit, and I didn't pick a fruit for this video. A lot of the things that we would be picking for fruit at this point are, we've harvested our pears, we've harvested our apples. Spice bush here in the fall is ready to be harvested. Your nuts are ready to be harvested, and fruit is kind of self-explanatory. We've been picking fruits for food forever, and I think that it's not that far of a leap then to think about in the food as medicine realm that we're picking our fruit when it's ripe and ready to be used. We don't want fruit that is unripe. We don't want fruit that is overripe or damaged or rotten. None of that is good medicine. None of that is gonna add to the body. It won't be at peak. And then when you get into fall, your next step is the root. So this is impossible. I'm gonna move this out from under you. This is impossible to get in a full shot, and the flowers have gone by, but this plant is Jerusalem artichoke or sunchoke, and I'm gonna blank on the Latin name. I've brought you out here, and it's gonna look like I've prepared nothing, but I'm gonna blank on the Latin name on this. We'll see if it comes to me as I talk. If not, I'll send me a note and I'll remember it after I do this video. The leaves on this are really sandpapery and leathery. This is a prairie native, so it grows readily here in the Midwest. We purposely planted this, but it is a weed that you're likely to find. You'll see some reddening on the stalks. You'll see a little bit of red sheen in the leaf, darker on the top than on the bottom, and it has like a sunflower type of leaf. The really exciting part of a sunchoke or a Jerusalem artichoke, depending on what you want to call it, is what's going on underneath. So this is something, these tubers are what we would be digging. This right here is a sunchoke. We don't use the leaf or the flower or the stalk in this plant. We use this part of the plant. This is a little early. Here on our farm, we've had, well, maybe we've actually had 2 frosts. I haven't had a hard frost yet. You don't want to eat Jerusalem artichoke until after a few good frosts, because it contains a starch that is not digestible in the human digestive system. It's called inulin, and inulin is very good for us. But until it's had a few frosts, it can cause digestive upset, especially gas and bloating, and very uncomfortable and maybe socially uncomfortable ramifications of eating this too early. But I would say in another week or so, we'll have enough of a frost here that I can harvest these and offer them to my members here on the farm. Inulin, which is the main compound in here, is not digestible in our system. It is a starch that is a prebiotic, and prebiotics are becoming much more popular and much more in the mainstream right now. Prebiotics are food for your good gut flora. So we've talked a lot, we've heard a lot about probiotics, we've talked a lot about that. You can get it in kombucha, and we'll talk about this throughout the summit. You may have heard it on lots of different websites about probiotics, but prebiotics, that's coming. You've heard it here. We need the prebiotics to feed the probiotics that we are encouraging to grow. So you can't just invite a bunch of neighbors to come and live in your neighborhood and then not have any food available. The prebiotics give that food. Now, because this is not digestible and it's such a good prebiotic, it has also been studied and found to be good at managing blood sugar in diabetics. When we eat this, it's a potato. It's a potato substitute. So we make a sunchoke soup that my family really enjoys. Lots of butter, lots of this, lots of cream, very decadent soup. And the inulin in that is helping to control blood sugar. It helps the digestion not to send sugars into the bloodstream, slamming it super hard and causing insulin to surge. So this is a great example of food as medicine that we can grow on purpose or we could find in our yard. And it also, it happens to be delicious. When we think about this, we're not thinking, well, how many teaspoons of soup do I need to consume? What's safe? We're just enjoying the soup. It's delicious. We're enjoying the food, and we're digging this as often as we can until the ground freezes to get at this particular food product. It lasts much longer in the ground. If you're a homesteader, this is a great starch provider because it will last in the ground longer than your potatoes. It won't rot, and you can keep getting at this until the ground freezes. The root time of your year is really after all of this upper has died away and all of the energy goes down into the plant below the ground and it's hibernating. So after this has all died and I've had a good hard frost, this is ready to be harvested. This is the same if I was harvesting burdock root or dandelion root or horseradish. I want everything above ground to die away and put all of its energy as a plant, and this is primarily, we're talking about perennials, It's put all the energy down into these roots, and I'm going to dig it then. The next time to be able to harvest our roots, as far as time of year, is in the spring, before this. This is going to snap away in the winter, and all that will remain is this hiding underneath the ground. And in the spring, it will start to send up a green shoot, and it will send this whole flower stalk up into the sky. And again, it will not be time to pick these roots. Do you have to live like this is dogma and it is the end all be all, and you can only harvest roots in the fall or the spring? Do you have to harvest the leaves only when the flower is just coming out and never again because it will be dangerous otherwise? No. None of these rules of time of year and time of day are written anywhere as hard and fast rules. They are things that we observe because we understand how the plant works. We are thinking in terms of the plant only has so many resources, and it is putting all of its phytochemicals, what makes it up, the nutrition that we glean from eating its tissues, it uses as part of its life cycle. All of the other compounds that we use sometimes for medicine, again, it's the same thing. It's using it, putting it throughout, moving water, moving food, feeding parts that are developing. So when we are paying attention to that, we understand that when a flower is just about to burst open, that's where all the plant's energy and compounds and water, and it's really putting a lot of attention into making that flower open. So that's going to be the most potent concentration of those chemicals that we want to get. Same with the root. When it's paying attention to all this above ground, it's not concentrating chemical compounds here. We're not going to get the best thing. But if I dig Jerusalem artichoke in the middle of the summer and I need to use this root, I can. It may take more to have the same effect that I'm looking for. It might not taste as good. It might not feel as good. It might be spongy, but I could. So none of these rules. Pick the flower when you come upon it, that's fine. Pick the leaf when you come upon it, that's fine. Or if you're managing your own property and you have the time and energy, you can pick at just the right time for the peak concentration of good chemicals. It also keeps better the more you have everything concentrated. Don't feel like anybody who's out there giving you information is somebody that you have to follow verbatim. Books are good. Herbalists that are online are good. Ethnobotanists that are online are good. Take the information, store it away, and then live your life and allow for your relationship with your property and the plants that you're harvesting to develop, and to use your own intuition and your own connection to spirit. So, if you have any questions, this is something that I teach more kind of ongoing, and you can always find that information for each of the plants that I teach about out on the membership. It's definitely something to experience. I'm very focused on how these plants grow as opposed to necessarily always just the medicine. There's a lot more going on out there, and it's fascinating, and we need to spend more time just going through our properties and understanding what's there. So I hope this inspires you to do so.